When the sun rose over the Cretan Sea on the 23rd of May, 1941, the water looked calm. A thin haze drifted above the swells. The destroyer, HMS Kipling, cut through the surface, her bow lifting and falling in steady rhythm. Men on deck smelled fuel, hot metal, and the faint smoke drifting from battles far to the north. They heard distant thunder that was not weather. It came from German bombs landing on shattered beaches. They saw flashes on the horizon as the island of Crete fought for every ridge and valley. Above them, the sky looked empty, yet the officer of the watch sensed movement. The sea felt too quiet. The air carried a pressure that warned trained men that aircraft were coming. Far off, specks grew darker. Engines moved in jagged tone. The sound thickened. Every man on board understood that Stukas were diving toward them. Crete had become a focal point of German strategy in May 1941. German paratroopers had landed on the 20th of May in the first large airborne assault of its kind. The objective was to seize airfields, gain control of the island, and secure a position that dominated the eastern Mediterranean. British, Australian, New Zealand, and Greek troops defended it. The Royal Navy tried to keep supply routes open, evacuate men, and challenge German air superiority. Destroyers such as HMS Kelly, HMS Kashmir, HMS Kipling, and others carried out these tasks. They moved in waters that German aircraft patrolled from bases in Greece. Air cover from the Royal Air Force over Crete had been nearly wiped out due to losses and fuel shortages. Destroyers had to operate without fighter protection. The Germans deployed Ru-87 Stukas and Ru-88 bombers from the Luftwaffe's the 8th Air Corps. They focused on British ships that appeared within range. Their aim was to break the Royal Navy's will to hold the seas around Crete. Stukas carried bombs with precision capability when diving at steep angles. Destroyers, although fast, offered limited anti-aircraft fire. Their guns could hit attacking planes, yet accuracy was difficult against steep dives. The British used maneuvering as a primary defense. Captains practiced tight turns at exact moments to avoid direct hits. On the 23rd of May, HMS Kelly and HMS Kashmir were ordered to assist operations near Crete. By mid-morning, German aircraft located them. Waves of Stukas attacked. Both ships took direct hits and sank. Survivors fought the cold water, smoke, and oil as bombers circled above. Signals went out to nearby destroyers, including HMS Kipling. Kipling had already faced air attack earlier in the morning. She had shot down at least one bomber. Her captain, Commander Manley Laurence Power, kept the ship moving at high speed to reduce attack accuracy. When the distress signals arrived, Kipling moved toward the last reported position of Kelly and Kashmir. Crete's northern coast lay under constant bombing. Columns of smoke marked destroyed vehicles and burning fuel stores. German control of the skies tightened. British commanders weighed the risk. Sending a destroyer into an area swarming with enemy aircraft risked losing another ship. Yet leaving hundreds of men in the water would mean certain death. Kipling received orders to proceed. As Kipling approached, the crew witnessed wreckage spread across the surface. Bodies floated among pieces of metal and wood. Oil coated the water. Survivors waved from makeshift rafts. They clung to life while Luftwaffe aircraft circled overhead. Stukas gathered altitude again. Their formations widened to prepare for more attacks. At this moment, Kipling began one of the most dangerous rescue operations of the Mediterranean War. The human angle centered on the sailors in the sea. They had watched their ships break apart from direct hits. Bombs lifted steel decks and twisted beams. Men were thrown into flames, shock waves, and churning water. Many swam, despite injuries. They feared machine gun attacks from aircraft, since earlier rescues had been targeted. When they saw Kipling approach, they felt hope mixed with fear. The ship could save them, but its presence could also draw another wave of bombers. Sailors grabbed one another to stay afloat. Some held on to corpses because the dead provided buoyancy. Many fought panic. The Mediterranean looked bright and calm, yet survival depended on minutes that could disappear under another dive. The tactical angle came from Kipling itself. Commander Power understood that stopping the ship would make it an easy target. Yet rescuing men required slowing down. He had to balance speed, turning angles, and the limited range of his guns. Kipling's crew prepared ropes, nets, and boats. Gunners stayed alert for aircraft. The destroyer's speed gave it a defensive advantage. A Stuka, diving at a fast-turning target, risked missing. Power used sudden rudder shifts to throw off the German pilot's aim. He timed movements by listening to the rise and fall of engines. The ship zigzagged, even as men were pulled aboard. Tactical coordination kept Kipling alive in a zone where no other British ship remained afloat. The technological angle focused on the aircraft. The Ru-87 Stuka had a distinct sound as it dived. Sirens mounted on landing gear produced a loud howl. This psychological effect had mattered in early war assaults. Against ships, the Stuka's precision became its main strength. Pilots aimed a 500-kilogram bomb toward a point just ahead of a moving ship. The dive reached steep angles before the pilot released the bomb and pulled upward. Accuracy depended on visibility and timing. In the Mediterranean, clear skies favored the German pilots. Stukas attacked in pairs or larger groups. Bombers coordinated altitude levels to create continuous pressure. Kipling's survival relied on exploiting the narrow margin for error inherent in the Stuka's attack profile. The enemy perspective angle described how German pilots viewed the scene. They saw a lone destroyer entering a field where 2 British ships had just been sunk. They expected an easy target. The pilots formed attack lines and began their dives. They watched Kipling swing violently from side to side. Each attack run ended with explosions in water instead of on deck. Pilots adjusted angles. They attempted to trap the destroyer between simultaneous dives. They saw bodies in the water and ships burning below. Rescue operations did not deter them. They focused on removing another British vessel from the Mediterranean. Yet as minutes passed, they saw that Kipling avoided each hit. Some aircraft returned to base low on fuel. Others prepared for additional runs. From the air, the destroyer looked like a small shape weaving through smoke and spray, refusing to stop. The turning point came when the full-scale attack began. Reports indicated that nearly 40 Stukas and supporting bombers converged on Kipling during the rescue. Some accounts suggest even more aircraft participated across multiple waves. The destroyer faced constant assault for more than an hour. Bombs fell close enough to lift the ship's stern out of the water. Shrapnel struck the hull. The noise of explosions shook bulkheads. Gunners fired until barrels glowed. They hit several aircraft. One bomber trailed smoke and fell toward the sea. Another broke formation after receiving damage. During the rescue, Kipling slowed to retrieve groups of men. Commander Power calculated how long he could remain near each cluster before another dive run arrived. He ordered engines to full speed exactly when bombers leveled out above them. The ship turned at sharp angles that nearly rolled her men on deck held to railings. Waves washed across the forecastle. As survivors were hauled aboard, some collapsed immediately. Others joined the crew in scanning the sky for more attackers. Bombs continued to strike water with violent force. One explosion landed so close that it smashed boats on the deck and damaged equipment. Another blast sent a column of water as tall as the mast. The ship's structure creaked. Engineers checked for flooding. Despite these shocks, Kipling maintained power. Fuel lines remained intact. Engines responded quickly whenever Power demanded a new burst of speed. The water filled with more survivors drifting outward. Kipling made repeated passes through the debris field. At times, the ship turned directly toward incoming aircraft. Power used the bow's narrow profile to reduce the target area. The tactic surprised some German pilots. They had expected the destroyer to flee. Instead, it moved in patterns that broke their attack lines. During one sequence, 5 Stukas dived in staggered order. Bombs landed left, right, and behind the ship. Deck plates shook. Men braced themselves. The last bomber released its payload early, possibly due to the destroyer's sudden turn. The bomb splashed harmlessly into the wake. As casualties increased among the bombers, the intensity of the attack began to shift. Kipling had rescued more than 200 survivors, yet the ship was still under threat. Some bombers returned for another run, but found their fuel nearly exhausted. Others switched focus to targets closer to Crete. The air around Kipling cleared slightly. The destroyer pushed engines to maximum output and withdrew from the area. Smoke poured from minor damage. Water sloshed in compartments. Still, the ship remained afloat. Crewmen checked their wounded. Survivors filled every passageway. Many suffered burns, cuts, and broken limbs. Medics worked with limited supplies. The smell of oil and scorched metal hung in the air. Men spoke quietly, overwhelmed by the scale of what they had survived. Kipling headed toward Alexandria with as many rescued sailors as her decks could hold. The aftermath of the attack carried strategic weight. HMS Kelly and HMS Kashmir were lost with heavy casualties. Kipling saved 279 survivors. Her actions demonstrated that rescue operations could succeed even under enemy air control if executed with precision and determination. The Luftwaffe had inflicted severe losses on the Royal Navy that week. Destroyers, cruisers, and battleships had been hit or sunk. These losses influenced British decisions to withdraw major naval forces from the immediate area during daylight. They recognized that operating without air cover against concentrated German attacks became unsustainable. Crete fell to German forces on the 1st of June. The island's loss forced British planners to reconsider Mediterranean strategy. They strengthened Malta's defenses to disrupt Axis supply lines. They improved coordination between naval and air units. The events around Crete highlighted the importance of air superiority. Ships that once dominated sea lanes found themselves vulnerable to precise bombing attacks. Kipling's actions did not reverse the overall outcome. However, they prevented the loss of hundreds more British sailors. Her survival encouraged other crews who saw that maneuvering, timing, and disciplined gunnery could counter even overwhelming air attack. HMS Kipling returned to service, but later met her own end in 1942 after air attack near Egypt. Commander Power received recognition for his leadership during the Crete rescue. The story circulated among naval officers who studied how one ship escaped destruction under near-impossible pressure. The Mediterranean fleet adapted tactics, improved anti-aircraft measures, and sought closer integration with available fighter support. Losses around Crete informed future operations, such as the relief of Malta and the North African campaign. This event demonstrated how a single ship's actions could reveal the limits of enemy air power when faced with a commander who understood timing and risk. It showed that narrow margins of survival existed even in situations dominated by aircraft. It reminded fleets that human decision-making mattered as much as machinery. Kipling's rescue became an example of courage shaped by discipline. It showed that even in a sky filled with Stukas, a destroyer could fight, maneuver, and save lives through skill and resolve.